Hi guys, Asmo here, and today I want to go through the cluster jewel passive changes. This is a spreadsheet that someone made that lists all of the changes to the cluster jewels, and basically a lot of them have been nerfed, and the title of this video is probably going to be GGG hates fun, because they removed all of the fun things, and these are like the worst changes I've seen them make in the long time, and I really hate a lot of them. Like, patch notes were fine, but all of these changes are just so bad, and I really don't understand the reasoning behind some of them. Some of them I get it, but some of them are just like, what the fuck? Like, who thought that was a good idea? So let's read through them first. The ones that are not highlighted are not changed. So here we see adrenaline, 15% increased maximum total recovery. So this is basically just a generic maximum total recovery per second from life leech nerfed, because it has been buffed on the two-handers. So this is just a two-hander buff. They're shifting the power from generic to two-handers. Reasonable, right? That's fine. Cold res, avoid chance to being frozen, avoid chance to being frozen, slightly lower. 6% chance to avoid cold damage from hits, 1 maximum cold res. I like the new one more. It's less RNG. It's more consistent, it makes more sense. Unaffected by poison, completely removed. Instead you gain +1 to max chaos res on additional different one. There's already another different one that gave you +1 to maximum chaos res. I hate this change. The reason is, like, nobody cares about, like, poison damage is so unimpactful. Like, if you care about poison damage, first of all, CI exists, okay? So CI exists, so don't tell me that you need to make like chaos damage a real threat, because it's not a real threat if you wanna go play around it, right? If you wanna play around it, you make it not a threat at all, right? It's just that level of investment, right? So the reason why unaffected by poison removal is something I really dislike is because it's a big nerf to builds that don't deserve a nerf. It's a big nerf to builds that reflect poison to themselves in order to stack virulence. Also, they removed at the same time, if we go Ctrl F, virulence, okay, you lose virulence 30% slower, removed. Was Herald of Agony, like, were Herald of Agony builds really that broken that you nerf like the reasonable aspect of them? Like, you could nerf the agony crawler damage, for example, per virulence, but make people able to like improve how the build feels, and so that they don't have to put themselves into like the shittiest playstyle ever because of how it works, right? Like, the additional thing about this unaffected by poison was that not only they removed that, but also there's 30% chance to avoid being poisoned, which is actually another nerf. This is another nerf, because that gives you 15% less virulence stacks, because half of the poisons come from the reflected ones, half of the poisons come from the ones you inflict, so you divide it by half, and you have a 30% less chance to being poisoned, which means 15% less virulence stacks. So you get less virulence stacks, and you also cannot have the unaffected by poison, so you cannot like buff your damage of whatever skill you're inflicting the poisons with. So you cannot have like you cannot take advantage of multiple scalings that affect like or the same thing that affects multiple elements that you're scaling. Like, for example, if you're scaling like global physical damage, and it's increasing your like Herald of Agony or something, and it's also increasing your global physical damage or like your cyclone, and you're benefiting in both areas, and that's great because you've been smart enough to make a build that benefits in two different places from the same scaling. Now that's actually just nerfed, because you're unaffected by you're not unaffected by poison, which means you're inflicting higher damage to yourself, right? So this is just punishing clever build making, right? And I really don't like that, and nobody really cares. Like, people who care about not dying to poison will either have chaos res anyway, or they will have and the appropriate pantheon, or a flask that removes poison, or they will have other things, like, or they will have other ailment, like reduced damage taken from ailments, reduced damage, like increased chaos resistance against damage over time, things like that. Like there are so many other ways to deal with this. You didn't have to remove a playstyle to nerf that, right? This is just a nerf, like more AoE, but less area damage. Just a nerf to 200s for some reason. Then at this in the patch that they're buffing them, but I guess they just don't want to make it like the 10% increased area damage is nothing though, so I don't know why they nerfed that. Increased movement speed while shocked and reduced effect of shocked is removed, and now you're unaffected by shocked round. And again, increased movement speed removed. Again, something fun, like self-shocking. You're shocked here, like you equip item that shocks you, or you do something that reflects shocks to you, or you use like the flasks that shocks you or whatever, right? And so you gain movement speed, but it also reduces the effect of shock on you. So it's a really cool way to like increase movement speed and gain effect of the being shocked as well in some other places. Now again, removed. Just reduced effect of shock of you and unaffected by the ground, and you cannot be shocked if you've been shocked recently. Just again, remove another fun way to make a build. Okay, that's all they're doing here. 20% increased brand attachment range. So okay, brands are completely destroyed pretty much, and there are still more nerfs here in certain places, but I'm gonna skim over those. 15% increased skill. Yeah, this is another one. Circling Oblivion. Increased skill effect duration, gone. Increased damage over time, slightly buffed. Increased duration of ailments, slightly buffed. But we usually, when you play like a chaos damage over time build, like this is fine for poison, right? This is fine for poison. This is fine for bleed, okay? This is a little buff to bleed and poison. But for chaos damage over time skills, this is a big nerf, yeah? So chaos damage over time, like blight and stuff like that with ED Contagion has been definitely nerfed in terms of the cluster jewels by a lot, because the duration has been like pretty much removed from everywhere. Increased cold damage, changed to cold damage over time multiplier, and then recover to life on kill, recover to life on killing chilled enemy. So this is a buff. And again, this is a buff to Cold.Occultist, Cold.Trickster, and there has been even more buffs to those builds, which is why I would definitely recommend it as one of the league starters. Cold.Occultist, Cold.Trickster are going to be definitely very good starters. Increased damage per one chance to block attack damage is removed because it has been put on the passive skill tree, so that's fine. This is 20% increased maximum total recovery from energy shield. Okay, so again, maximum total recovery per second from life leech overall lowered because it's buffed on the two-handers, right? So they're shifting the power to two-handers, that's fine. War cries. Exerted attacks deal more damage, whatever. Chance to impale removed because it was busted. This is crazy. This is crazy. This is another thing. So yeah, this is the virulence, but also 1% additional physical damage reduction per summoned Sentinel of Purity, gone. Completely gone. So you cannot now stack like extra Sentinels of Purity and then try to get extra additional physical damage reduction. It's absolutely gone. What they're doing is removing additional physical damage reduction from everywhere. Like the passive skill tree, cluster jewel notables, all of them have that stat removed for some reason. And they're only leaving this on like ascendancies like Juggernaut and I guess Guardian and things like that. So the additional physical damage reduction is removed from so many places because I guess they want people to go for armor. That's it. Like I'm not sure, but I don't like this change because that was a good stat to use. Like so many builds could like choose to either go for more life, to go for like a buffed guard skill, to go for additional physical damage reduction. It was like a healthy option that you could pick, and now they remove it from so many places, just lowering the defense. And a lot of builds that pick this up, that are mostly melee builds, are going to be punished. So melee is going to be more squishy now unless you're stacking billions of armor. Then we have increased armor is same, but instead of instead of additional physical damage reduction, they have chance to defend with double armor. Yeah? So just increasing your armor for calculating the damage you take from attacks. Increased damage for each herald affecting you. This is from 25 to 5. So if you're using one Herald, this is exactly the same. If you're using more than one Herald, this is a nerf. Yeah? 5% chaos damage over time multiplier, and chaos skills have 30% increased effect duration. Gone. Just removed. Eternal Suffering, pretty much best cluster jewel node for ED Contagion, completely removed. So ED Contagion, late game damage, that was absolutely not the problem. Why this or reason why this skill was played is nerfed. Like, this shows, I don't understand, like, how do you balance it that way? Basically, they have a skill that is very strong early on because you don't need to invest much to have a great clear, and then later on it falls off and you need to really heavily invest to have respectable damage. And one of the ways to do that is the Eternal Suffering, which can give you like a damage that is, okay, close to some other skills that deal a lot of damage, but still nowhere near the top DPS. And they nerfed that part that was already weak. Like, that makes no sense. Why not just nerf, like, why not just make early scaling of like area of contagion lower, or like early scaling of the damage over time lower? Or why not make the passive skill tree that are closer to Shadow, like, deal less chaos damage over time, but then the ones that are further deal more or something, right? Like, nerf the early mapping, which is the strong part of ED Contagion, right? Nerf the early mapping, like, you know, white and yellow maps, nerf that, and then leave the red mapping and like doing bosses, because that's already not a strong point of ED Contagion at all. It's actually the weak point of it, and they're nerfing the weak point of a build and leaving the strong point of it. It makes no sense at all to do it that way. It sounds really, really bad, and they're, because just someone had an idea to do, oh, what if we can do wither for elemental damage on gloves and then do wither for hits and stuff like that. Like, I don't like that. So let's demolish this build. 5% chance to dodge attack hits from cursed enemies. This doesn't exist now, but they add something. But they add something like this, which is like, I don't understand. So they're nerfing something that is weak. And don't get me wrong, ED Contagion is not weak, but it is weak at this point. It is weak at the single target damage in the very end game, right? Fighting Cyrus, fighting Wave 20 Colossus, fighting all of that on ED Contagion is not as good as on the other builds, right? That's the bad stage of ED Contagion, and then they're nerfing the bad stage, but they're leaving all the good shit. Like, early on, you will just blast through content with ED Contagion because it's like insane clear, and you'll do everything so well. And they're not changing that. They're not changing that it's a no-brainer league starter every single time, and you don't have to have any investment into anything. It just works. So they leave that, but they nerf the part at which the build is weak. But what else they do? They buff something that is already strong. They buff Curse on Hit, right? So enemies you curse take 5% increased damage, and non-cursed enemies you inflict non-aura curses on are blinded for 4 seconds, which means either self-cast, which nobody in their right mind is gonna do, or Curse on Hit, right? Because this has to be from non-aura. So Curse on Hit basically gives you free blind now for 4 seconds, right? So this is a huge buff, right? To like safety in maps like red maps when you have Curse on Hit. Again, it's cool, but their balance makes like no sense. They're doing it backwards. They're nerfing the weak part of something and they're buffing the strong part of something else, right? Like, how does that make any sense? 30% increased mine damage. Okay, mines have 10% chance to be detonated an additional time. That's a little bit of RNG. I don't like the RNG with mines. Definitely nobody's gonna go for that. Then we have reduced ignite duration on you, unaffected by burning ground. Reduced damage. Okay, reduced extra damage taken from critical strikes when ignited. That was actually pretty cool because it's like a one-shot prevention, and they remove the one-shot prevention. But instead, ooh, you're unaffected by burning ground. Who cares? Who really cares about burning ground? Like, unless you're an extremely slow CI build with like no regen at all. Like, I don't know. Again, another nerf to a really good mechanic. So reduced effect of non-damaging ailments, reduced elemental ailment duration of you, but you cannot get the immunity from this, right? So no longer you can get like the easy immunity from getting this and some other avoid elemental ailments, which if you were a smart player, you were basically figuring out how to stack that and get rid of the elemental ailments on you, like to get to 100% chance. Now you cannot do that, so now it basically feels worse to do that. That's what this change makes happen. You're still preventing dying to elemental ailments from skills, but it just feels worse to do. That's all it accomplishes. Just makes the build feel worse. What else do we have? That's why I'm saying like GGG hates fun in with these cluster changes. This is just a reduced mana reservation nerf on curses. The curses were not the problem with the mana reservation. Actually, stacking curses is so shit because it only works in maps. It doesn't work on bosses because of the like 66% reduced curse effectiveness on the end game bosses. So yeah, of course, nerf a build that's not even playable in the end game. Plus 1% critical strike multiplier. So they removed the crit multi per ES on shield and attack damage per armor or evasion on shield. I thought that was actually a really cool node, and I did the math on that, and it was, even if you get like a GG mirror tier item, it still wasn't that broken. But of course, not like almost nobody's gonna get GG mirror tier shield with like almost 400 ES, right? But even then it wasn't as crazy, so I don't know why they would like completely remove that. Then we have brand. Okay, brands are destroyed anyway. Enemies taunted by war cries are intimidated instead of having the cooldown and unnerved. So this is just a little bit of a nerf because you're gonna be getting more extra benefits for war cries from the passive skill tree. Reduced mana reservation of Herald skills is gone, so this is lightning exposure. So this is, I guess, if you're like stack up one or two, I guess if you stack like a Herald, if you like invest heavily into Herald, like Elementalist, stacking like fire damage and have like fire exposure, and then also you have like the extra fire exposure from like the Elementalist nodes, just like minus resistances. This might be fine. This might be a cool node to pick up. Remove curse after channeling for 2 seconds instead of immune to curse while channeling. So again, channeling skills are already like, I mean, this is Cyclone nerf. Okay, I get it that it's a Cyclone nerf, but it's also a nerf to other really shitty channeling skills that nobody wants to play because they're channeling and you have to stand in place. So it makes them more clunky and less fun. So that's another change that makes something less clunky and more fun because of Cyclone. What else do we have here? Reduced freeze duration, additional physical damage reduction while frozen. Okay, that's a fine change. Attack skills deal 25%. Okay, so more damage but less dodge while dual wielding. Okay. Brand skills. So, okay, is this another nerf? Not sure. Minions. Okay, this is another change that I hate. Look at this. Increased raised zombie size. They actually removed big zombies. What the fuck? Seriously, like what the fuck? Who thinks that this is a good idea? Like there is a fun mechanic in game that people make memes and videos, and their videos get a lot of views on YouTube, and the game is being promoted because people are like, oh wow, in this game you can do crazy things like make your minions super big and then go into other players' hideouts, and they're like, oh, what the fuck is that? And everybody's having fun. Removed. Like what? Who thought this is a good idea to remove? Like what was this really doing to the game? Like was this really breaking the game engine because you had to render bigger zombies? I don't understand. Like I don't understand. Like okay, some people don't want 20% increased zombie size because it clutters their screen. Okay, this is not like a fucking game-changing node. It's just some extra life and taunt. It doesn't do shit. Nobody needs this in their build. The whole point of this was just the increased size, and this is just an extra other thing. Oh wow, they're bigger now. This was super cool, and it's just removed. Fucking hate this change. Whoever made this, I don't know. They really shouldn't be making changes for this game. 20% to lightning resistance, 40% chance to avoid being shocked, 6% chance to avoid the lightning damage to hits, change to 1 maximum lightning rest. This is a good change because this is less RNG, more consistency, so I like that. Increased physical damage, overwhelm 10% physical damage reduction. I have no idea what the hell that means. 4% additional physical damage reduction. Oh, all of that is removed, right? The additional physical damage reduction is just gone. When you Warcry, you and nearby allies gain onslaught for 4 seconds. Okay. Another summoner buff. Another crazy, nuts, insane summoner buff. What the fuck? Like, they really have no idea what they're doing with these changes. Like, they actually have absolutely no idea what they're doing with these changes. So, not only you introduce this is what they're doing, like they always keep doing this, like they buff a build in so many ways at the same time without like realizing that. So they are introducing changes to the rallying cry that adds flat damage. Like there is a war cry that adds a lot of flat damage to your minions' attacks, and guess what, it is stronger if you have more minions around you. And it scales with having more minions around you. Guess what it also scales with? Attack speed. So guess what? When you Warcry, now your minions get onslaught. What the fuck? What the fuck? This is so broken now. Like animate weapon or SRS or like Vol summon skeleton, anything that summons a lot of minions around you is just going to be so insanely broken. It's just gonna mail the bosses like crazy. This is such an insane summoner buff. It's not even funny. Like, what in the hell? Like, if I didn't practice Ball Lightning so much and didn't know exactly how to start with it, I would be playing Summoner 100% this league. Add it to my list of top 3 starter builds. Summoner. Summoner with Rallying Cry with this. Oh my fucking god, this is crazy. This shouldn't be in the game. What the fuck? They're really like... Oh my god, okay. What else do we have here? Chance to gain power charge when you use a mana flask. Increased mana recovery. Okay, that's an interesting, cool way of gaining, I guess, power charges. I guess that's fine. What else do we have? Enemies you curse are unnerved instead of intimidated because the other thing is on another jewel, so they wanted to split that. That's cool. Exerted attacks. I don't really care that much. +1 to maximum fire res. Again, so this is the less RNG change that they're doing on all 3 of those. That's cool. Life recovery for reduced effect of curses on you. Reduced effect of non-damaging ailments on you. Okay. Whatever. Okay, they're removing this. Additional physical damage. I hate that they're removing this from everywhere. Increased armor while stationary alive. Okay. So increased armor rather than this. That's a change. Okay, again, the same thing. Shitting on crit multi everywhere. We know that they wanted to reduce crit, and that's fine because these crit multi nodes were good, but it's fine. It's fine. You can still pick up them from the passive skill tree and you're good. Crit multi against taunted enemies, +5 to... Okay, yes, they're removing the +1 to maximum number of Sentinels of Purity. Like, the Herald of Purity is just completely destroyed. I don't know. Like, just completely ruined build. Purity of Elements is increased aura effect, so 10% instead of 30, except for this one, because it grants lower total values. Okay. Aura buffs from skills have 8%. Okay, this is the Purposeful Harbinger nerf they've been talking about, so of course they became hard capped. I already talked about it. I would have done it. I would have not done the hard cap, but I would do it 3%. Because the logic is, when you do it 3%, with 5 heralds you gain 15%, and the best node on the passive skill tree is like 14%. So you end up being like slightly better than the best node on the passive tree by 1%, but it only affects you and not other players in terms of the aura effect. And then if you invest a shitload of money, you can still have a functioning build. This way you can't have a functioning build, it's just gone. So they just remove the build instead of making it balanced, you know? Taunted enemies, blah blah blah. So, okay, so this is for exerted attacks. Cast speed with brand skills. Okay. Oh, this is another thing that I don't like. This should be renamed to the communist presence, because everybody gets the same life region per second. It doesn't matter if you invested 17 mirrors in your build and you have 40 auras activated, or if you level 73 witch and you have 1 aura on, you still get the same amount of region. I don't like that at all. I don't like things that don't scale and that cannot be utilized in any way. It's just like a flat thing. It's very boring. Crit multi nerfs. This looks exactly the same, so I don't know what's the change here. Brands, crit multi nerfs, crit multi nerfs. This is really good. This is really good. Totems are shit and weak. So now you gain Onslaught for free when you're summoning them. It's attached to a really bad node because totem duration doesn't matter at all. You never care about it. Like it's like the least important stat on totems. But you can get the Onslaught, so that's really strong. The Onslaught on totems is very, very strong. You get it for free. You free up a flask slot. That's really cool. I like that. That's a good change to buff a weak build. That's what you want to do. Buff weak builds. Don't buff the strongest mechanics you have in the game, like curse on hit and things like that. Buff the weak builds. Don't buff minion builds that are gonna be absolutely broken already because of other changes you introduced. Okay. What do we have here? Increased attack speed. Okay, what is Alchemist Genius? I'm gonna have to like somehow figure out what that is because we don't know. So less energy shield recharge rate, but higher maximum energy shield. Okay, it's still a very good node. It's still very, very good. Channeling skills deal more damage, but lower block. Okay, block nerf for channeling for some reason. I guess Cyclone nerf again. Armor per unreserved mana, so this is like a Hierophant buff. This is probably like crit double damage nerf, okay, because they're introducing it in many different places. Crit multi nerf for traps and mines. We don't care because we never pick up the cluster jewels anyway. Then we have, what do we have here? Hinder, increased spell damage while on full energy shield. Okay. Increased air effect, increased maximum. Okay, another change that everybody will be happy about, right? You're so happy that this is removed, right? It changes your game into the very positive way, right? You can no longer feel like your character is cool. Fun removed. What the fuck? Fire this person. Seriously, fire this person. Whoever did this, fire this person. Minions have critical, like lower crit multiplier. Okay, lower crit multi for minions. We don't care. Crit on minions is like a niche thing. It was very strong, but very niche. Curse skill have increased cast speed. Enemies cursed by you have malediction if 33% of curse duration expired. What? That is so bad. That is so bad. It's like a, yeah. And if enemies cursed by you have malediction, if 33% of the curse duration expired and you moved your character to the left and you pressed your Q hotkey, whatever that skill is, and also you opened your inventory for 7.3 seconds and you're sitting while your left leg is on top of your right leg. Like, what is this condition? Like, what the fuck? How is that in any way reliable? Like, you want to apply curse before it expires again anyway, so you almost never benefit from that. This is so pointless. Increased skill effect duration, increased chaos damage, cut in half, increased skill effect duration, just completely nerfed. Yep. And then we have, this is another thing I'm pretty mad about. So One build who benefited from that a lot, who like really found this very useful and it was kind of build enabling, was RF Trickster. Now go to PoE Ninja and look at the top of the ladder and see how many people are playing. Actually, let's do it now. Let's do it now. Let's go to the top of the ladder. Let's select Trickster, okay? Righteous Fire, okay? 3 people. 3 people, okay? 3 people are playing this build. It deserves a huge nerf, right? 3 people on the entire ladder that we see are playing this build. And it's getting nerfed. So instead of, you lose the fire damage over time multiplier while burning, okay? 5% chance to cover enemies on Ash on hit. RF builds don't hit. 20% increased burning damage. 20% increased fire damage. Okay, that would be same thing. But just 15% damage removed and region removed. Cannot be chilled. Who cares? You have that accounted for in other places. Massive region, 15% fire damage over time multi, just completely removed. Because 3 people are on the ladder playing that build. And 1 person made a video with that build. What? So, in summary, GGG hates fun. I wish the person who removed the increased size of the zombies and of the characters was not working at that company. And I don't even play these builds. I don't even play this, but it's just like such a bad decision making, right? And they're like buffing things that are already super strong at the same time, multiple times, while nerfing things that are weak or parts of the builds that the builds are weak at, they're nerfing, but they're leaving the strong parts. Makes absolutely no sense. Like 30% of these changes are like whatever, don't do much. 30% are like or like 33.3 are like make sense and they're good changes, and then the remaining 1/3 of the changes is just so bad, like I'm really mad at them. So yeah, GGG hates fun. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time.